Hello? Hey, how's everybody? It's been an amazing conference, right? Cake, are you kidding me? Dude. So I'm going to share a bit about me real quick. I've been doing the software thing for about 20 years. Like you said, I have 5 kiddos, so I have no time to play much. So during that time, I've been through 3 startups, 2 Fortune 500 companies, and I am rocking the new Relic right now, which I am blessed to be doing. The amazing thing that I have found in all of that is I've done it extraordinarily terrible. And it turns out that just over the past couple of years, actually, I think I've begun to figure this thing out. And I'd like to share that with you, and I'd like to do that by first kind of establishing the precedent. Like, what are terrible behaviors, kind of something that we could probably all relate to, and if not, there's going to be many more, I'm sure. And then after we do that, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of redefine that. So we're going to do a little refactoring today, which I hope everybody's kind of familiar with. And then at the end, of course, we're going to win. So I hear this often. I hear someone say, "Hey man, I'm living the dream," and I'm like, what does that even mean, right? So I have to put that in terms of me, right? So I think about what would that mean for me. So last night I had a dream about a Raspberry Pi chasing me and trying to solder me to a board. Yeah. So like if you're living my dream, sucks to be you, man. So I don't want that. I don't want that. And I know it's just I get it. It's an expression. But the deal is it's also an expectation, is it not? Right? And so I'm going to try to ground us in reality and help us figure some things out that I think most of us struggle with. And so I hope to do that well. So let's go ahead and jump in. The dark side. Everybody's probably familiar with this, the things we don't do quite so well, the behaviors that we tend to continue to perpetuate even though we don't want to. Long ago, economists used to say that we do things in our best interest. Humans generally will do things in their best interest. To counter that, I thought, I point you to McDonald's, I point you to crappy B movies, all these things that we tend to like to waste our time on and not actually do anything very effective. So I'm gonna actually try to disprove that whole thinking and say that we don't do things in our best interest and that we got to kind of work hard at that, which is kind of a cool thing, right? I mean, we get an opportunity to refactor our lives every day, and I hope I can help you with that. So one of the behaviors that I think that we're quite well at is thinking that more work equals more things or better things, and I don't agree with that at all. And this is why. Has anybody seen Judge Dredd? The other one, the Sylvester Stallone, I am the law, that guy. So you remember the guy that had a little knobby thing on his head, and he turned it up, he cranked it up, beat the snot out of Sylvester Stallone, and then he cranked it up even more, and his head exploded, right? He went in overdrive, and I do believe that if we push our life so hard as far as work goes, our heads will explode. You will die. And I don't recommend that at all. And I don't recommend that because of the simple fact, there is so much more to life than life in work. So, this is my backyard, and I set out a year ago to make the ultimate zip line. The most epic thing my 5 children or any other child on this earth would ever ride upon. As it turns out, I spent more time, Software 101 tells you not to do this, I spent more time speccing the thing out. I gold-plated my specification, calculating sag, calculating the weight and attenuation and push and pull on the line, and lo and behold, here the zip line is not. A year later, I still have no zip line. I have gold-plated myself into a non-existent project. Can anybody relate to that? Okay, amen. I appreciate that because I feel pretty lousy about that. So somewhere along the line, we as this general set of humanity have decided that work and life are 2 separate things and never the twain shall meet. I don't know exactly where that came from. I haven't done any research. I'm not that smart to go figure something like that out, I guess. But what I do know is what if, let me postulate with you. What if, let's think about this, what if we made work and life more like Velcro and less like sandpaper? Can you imagine the things we could get done? Can you imagine working together as opposed to trying to split these things apart. Take this example, for instance. Let's say I have work here and life here. And let's say I try to create this currency, a coin, for instance. And we know when we go and take money to a teller or something, and we pay for something, it has to be valid currency. It has to have both sides, right? You cannot spend a single-sided coin. You'll get arrested, thrown in jail, whatever. Probably not help your lines of code committed. So if you actually say these are two completely separate things, then what is our currency of life? How can we spend that currency if they're two separate things, right? We need to make sure that this kind of thing, this kind of work and life go together, not apart. We have to spend life currency in such a way that it is spendable, right? Can anybody relate to this? Can anybody relate to being an imposter? Or feeling like when you walk into a room of people, amazing people, like right now in this room, I'm looking at you guys and I'm like, these are exceptional individuals. By the very definition that you're New Relic customers, perhaps, or that you're just awesome. In general, I mean, you're here, you're wanting to learn, you're wanting to kind of kick it up a notch, and so you're awesome. So that, by its definition, should probably be a little intimidating, right? Right? I mean, am I good enough to be here? Who defines good enough? Is it me? The irony of that is that we sit there without any input from anyone else, and we sit there and we define what's good enough. And we put ourselves in a box that is defined by us. Therefore, we are essentially shackling ourselves to something that is non-existent. Being an imposter assumes that you have no outside help, that it assumes that you're thinking and working in a box. And I hope that we can kind of peel back that skin, that imposter skin, and go, no, I work on a team. I work with people. I do things. I get stuff done with people. I'm not an imposter. No, I'm not. The more we think of ourselves as an imposter, as someone who doesn't belong, I should not be here because these people are too awesome for me, whatever that means, the more we focus on ourselves and the less we focus on getting software done, the cool stuff, the fun stuff. And of course, there's a whole lot more. I just went over a couple of things that I imagine that you guys probably could relate to. I hope you can. What I'd like to do, though, is I would like to go ahead and kind of build on this side, this series of behaviors that maybe could help a little bit. My goal here is at the end, I'm going to do something super dangerous. Get ready. I'm going to do something super dangerous, and I'm going to ask you to make a choice at the very end of this thing. And I hope you can. I hope you can choose. So the first thing I'd like to share is the nerd's hierarchy of needs. Now, I know what you're thinking, Nick. Where's the Red Bull? Where are the sci-fi quotes? Where are the things that should be in this pyramid? That's implied, right? Right? Come on. I have to have some structure to my talk. So these things I found to be consistent, and I kind of tore apart my life as I was having this renaissance of thought. And I got renewed as far as, wow, you mean I don't have to sleep underneath a desk? You mean it's okay to share my work and thought ideas and take my kiddos and make some crazy stuff at home with them and still be a nerd? Now, what is that all about? And these are the things I found that made that work. It made my life more like Velcro and less like sandpaper, right? Let's go ahead and get started on that. So one of the things I did, I took 2 weeks, because as software developers, we measure and we iterate, right? And we test sometimes. Yeah, we should test all the time. So I went ahead and tested myself. I went ahead and put myself through a trial. I used this thing called Rescue Time. Super epic. If you've never used it, I recommend you go give it a go. And I measured myself for 1 week. I decided I was going to be the ninja script kiddie coder that drank Red Bull and worked all night and woke up in the morning, kind of rinsed and repeated myself kind of thing. And what I did was I put the kids to bed, and the wife went to sleep, and I got back up and I coded till 10 to 2 or 3 in the morning, and just kept on going. Turns out that might have been me like 20 years ago, but not today. Not today at all. It turns out, in the second week, I went ahead and remeasured myself with the same application, and what I did was I just gave myself an interval. I said, I'll go to work at, get up at 5, get up at 6 or whatever, go to work, and then actually start going home at 4. Had an awesome team, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. Just kind of literally kicked me out the door. Thank you. And it turns out that I am way more productive. I hate mornings, but me as the worker, as the guy who loves getting code done and doing some neat stuff, turns out he loves mornings. And that's what I got to go with. I got to go with the facts. I got to go with the metrics. If any of you guys have used New Relic, you got to go with the metrics, right? You know that when you see something bad in your application, you can't just be like, well, that's my code actually. I have to deal with that. Another thing I do, which I get really, really strange looks at, no matter where I am, but I tend to be a nomadic developer, so I'll either kind of sit at a desk for a bit or stand up or kind of move around a bit. But it turns out that I am way less productive with a big old CRT on my desk and a keyboard and all that stuff, any peripherals. I'm way less productive with all that junk in my way. Mental capital, my mental capital just gets absolutely absorbed by all the wonderful distractions. Linda Stone, formerly of Microsoft and Apple, she coined this phrase, continual partial attention. Some people call it multitasking. I call it failing, right? It just doesn't work. I mean, some people might be okay at it, but in general, when you're partially just attentive to something, you will not be fully doing it, and that goes for anything. So I'd rather do something full with all instead of just part. So have you ever seen this? Have you ever seen? You get out your phone and you're like, I'm going to check email. You swipe, and instantly you're playing Angry Birds magically. Right? Like, how does that happen? I'm literally, you'll see this and you're like, oh, yeah, that's not me swiping email, that's swiping little birds across the screen. Instead of doing what I intended to do when I got on my device, it turns out that everything intentionally, because these guys are marketing geniuses, is vying for my time. And so what I did was I just tried something out. I thought, hey, how neat would it be just to wipe out all applications on all my devices? And then over a week, whichever ones it turned out that I needed, I would just go ahead and add back. Funny thing is I only actually use about a third of all the applications on my phone at any given time. So now this has become a ritual for me. I wipe out my devices probably every couple of months. And it has saved me from checking my Angry Birds mail many times. That's where my mind needs to be. If I'm going to get on that thing, I'm either going to do it all play or I'm going to do it all work. And that I think, as far as devices go, can eat our lunch if we're not careful. Because I'm totally ADD. I'll admit it. My wheels come completely off when I crack open a device. I don't need any help getting distracted. So this is the thing I kind of alluded to earlier. At New Relic, I have got an extraordinary team. The guys I work with are ridiculous. And that's a good ridiculous. I mean, they're not a bad one, but they're like a good ridiculous. And I have people backing me up as far as this whole work-life thing goes. We encourage each other, we share, and all that good stuff. But when it comes time to go, they make sure that I go out the door. They know it's for my home life sanity. They know it's a good thing, and they know that it's important to me that I get out the door so that I can enjoy hacking with my kids, or talking about just tough problems with my wife. I mean, that's an opportunity we all have, whether it's going to go home and hack with our friends. Somebody alluded to it in the keynote this morning, that it's very important as far as just sanity's sake. Just, plug out a little bit and go play hard, so you're ready to come back and do some good stuff. And speaking of good stuff, these are some of my most just favorite pictures. The thing on the end here, this is what we call lapdog. It's an idea that my kids came up with because they got tired of plugging the Raspberry Pi into the TV, and so they made we found this on Adafruit, if you guys are familiar with that. They made a laptop out of a Raspberry Pi, and incidentally I've got that with me, so I'll be in the Hacker Lounge later if you guys want to see it. They did all the soldering, they did all the fun stuff. And my kids' ages range from 9 to 2. Not everybody solders, by the way. Not the 2-year-old. Though the 3-year-old does, whenever they have a toy that's broken, I no longer, because I've chosen to do this, have this kind of mindset where I'm bringing my nerd home. Don't leave it at work. Bring it home. I bring my nerd home, and this little dude, he's 3 years old, and he is soldering one of his toys back together. I'm not kidding. And that is the way I believe it should be. Now, for instance, in this one right here, they found out where the directory for all the games on the Raspberry Pi is. And so they started playing them. They got frustrated. There's like a squirrel game. I don't exactly know what it is, but they got frustrated because they kept on dying. So they put their little noggins together, and they hacked the game so that the squirrel would never die. I mean, how do you deal with that? I can't even teach that. And over here, that was terrible. That was a bad idea. We made a ballista, and what you don't see is their brothers on the other side of that, and they're actually shooting the 2-man ballista. That was like Rev 1. We kind of stopped after Rev 2, realizing it was a horrible idea. But the point is that if I had to decide to leave that stuff at home, or at work rather, would they know? Or would there be any adventures here? No, probably not. Now the cool thing is that when I see their little faces when we start a new project, because they're usually coming up with all sorts of things, and they're like, well, Dad, have you ever done this? And I'm like, no, I have no idea how to do this. And they're totally disarmed. And they're like, wow, Dad's going to go on the journey with us. He's not just taking us to a destination. And I believe, here's the bent, I believe we could do that with our friends, our husbands or wives, anybody. Because if you're genuinely passionate about this, about being a nerd, being whoever you are, why wouldn't you share that? So one of the things I learned is that I'm really good at planning my software. I'm really bad at planning my day. There's n number of things. I mean, there's a billion apps about how to make lists and how to do all these things and keep track of what you should be doing during the day, as well as how you should be building your software and all that good stuff. Why don't we scrum board our day? I mean, why don't we have a scrum board hanging in our shower or something? For like those shower thoughts. That's totally inappropriate, actually. So why don't we have something like that's always in our face where we can actually use to get stuff knocked out every day? I mean, how cool would that be? We would actually get stuff done instead of going, wow, I've got to carry these anchors into the weekend. No thanks. Another thing, how many of you guys are familiar with everybody except those who use Ruby are familiar with multi-threading? I guess Ruby doesn't now. Yeah. No, I'm a .NET developer. I love Ruby when I can poke at it. So we know that when you leak threads or when you leak database connections or when you leak memory, right, that's a bad thing because generally it causes things to crash. Check this out. What if you work on these things during the day? What if you broke those things up into little bits to where you could achieve 5 smaller things, and you can walk away from your desk or walk away from wherever you are feeling like I could go home and I'm not like caught in the thought. I almost got hit. I'm not kidding. I almost got hit by a car. I'm on a bike because I was locked into something I was working on during the day, which is not a bad thing. The hit by the car is a bad thing, but like thinking about what you're doing, but somehow you've got to let go. You got to kind of click out so that you can click back in really well. And I think you could do that if you work in these smaller bits that you can kind of actually eat just one at a time. So going to the beach, picture this. You swim and everybody's having fun. You fall down in the sand. You get sand in your britches, and you start walking, and you start getting a rash, right? So that's a problem, right? Because there's these little grains of sand. They're so small, but they can cause you so much pain. So I call this the grain of sand factor. I believe that the number of times something comes up, if you're not willing to address it, is inversely proportional to you actually being able to just stop and fixing it. So whenever your IDE fails you, for us .NET people, or whenever your text editor, for everybody else, fails you, then do something. Change the settings. Do that like right then and there so that you don't have to deal with it later on. Because eventually those things aggregate and they start frustrating you. And the more you become frustrated with your environment, the less likely you're to spend any time in it. So when I think about humanity in general, I hear this all the time, whether it's Twitter, some social channel, face-to-face. Everybody's got an idea. And I bet you if I asked anybody in this room, how many ideas have you got in any given moment? And maybe it's 5, maybe it's 10, maybe it's 2, I don't know. But oftentimes, who's ever said, I have an idea, and that's where it died? Anybody done that? Man. So here's a thought. What if we stopped having ideas and we just started making projects? I had this guy, where is he? The 3-year-old, the little solderer guy. He came up to me and he said, Dad, I want to make something. I want to make a toy. I want to make this thing that lights up, and it would be great. And I go, well, that's a great idea. That's a good idea. Let's think about that. Right? And instead of just starting to do it, instead of just jumping right in and doing it, I spent more time thinking about it than doing the project. We just wanted to make a little magical wand thing with a little LED, a little 10 millimeter LED on the end. All we had to do was do, right? That's all we had to do. And so I think we should challenge ourselves, just as a group of people, that if we really want to be awesome and kill this thing, maybe we should just drop the whole idea of ideas and just say, hey, have a project. It's a difference between get in it and get nothing, Or, don't push nothing. Don't do that. Just give it a shot. Get in it, get commit, get push. That's all we need to do. Promise. Don't be afraid of the dragons. Oftentimes we get caught in the fact where we have not been, and we like to stay where we have. And frankly, where we have been, where's the fun in that? We already know what's there. So here's the dangerous part. I told you it was coming. The Rubicon. Product placement. I had to do that. I guess it's my boss. So here's the choice. Ada Lovelace, world's first programmer. She wrote it on a piece of paper. Mother of 3. Awesome. Why the lucky stiff? Change the way we think about how we can teach software to anybody. Grace Hopper, compiler. I wouldn't have a job without her. She's awesome. Marcus Notch, he changed the landscape of what is considered to be an awesome game forever. He made Minecraft. These 2 guys single-handedly created a security industry for the PC. They wrote the first virus, Brain A. So what do they all have in common? Were they exceptional? Did they do really cool stuff? Yeah, sure, definitely. Did they all go to Harvard, or did they all have just this supernatural intelligence? No. What'd they do? Well, they made a choice, right? They made a choice to forsake being crappy, and they made a choice to be exceptional. We can spend so much time thinking and worrying about what we could do instead of doing it. So here's the choice. We can choose to be exceptional, or we can choose to be mediocre. Not that it's going to be perfect or easy, but we can choose. So I'm from Texas, if you hadn't noticed, y'all. And I recently moved to Portland, and everybody's telling me that you should bike. You should do this bike thing, right? And there's 2 of y'all. Somebody else is out there with me. You don't do that in Texas. No way, man. I'm dead. I'd be hit, run over. Even in Portland, I almost got hit. So that's because I think no software. So what happened? I got out there and I was doing the Portland thing, right? That's what you're supposed to do when you're a transplant. And I got out there, got the bike, I got the gear. I was a cool guy on the bike riding this thing. It's 24 miles round trip, right? That's dumb. That's just not right. And I hated it at first. I was like, what am I doing? This does not make any sense. And I looked around me and I saw people smiling for no reason. They were sweating and they were all just drenched and just terrible looking. They just looked like they were in pain, but they were smiling. And I didn't get it. And then I saw people walking their dogs or running with them or whatever they do. And they were picking up after them. Who owns who? Can we just, right? Okay, so anyway, they were picking up after their dogs. And they were smiling. They were having a good time. And I go, I want that. And I kept on riding. I kept on riding. And I had an awesome backup. The people in Portland, we are data nerds, yes, at New Relic, but we are bike nerds, man. Good night, we're bike nerds. And it was awesome. Saved my tail, I don't know how many times. So I was going to stick with it because I was being encouraged, right? Isn't that kind of what we should do with other people around us, coding, doing whatever, just doing life? We should encourage each other. I started loving it. Something happened. I started smiling. I was one of those people who would fall off their bike and go, sweet, that was awesome, and get back up and still smile. And I realized something. Man, that's what I do with software. When I'm writing code, I have a smile on my face. And it turns out there was something really special about those two things. There was absolutely no reason for me to bike to work 24 miles a day. No reason. Absolutely no reason. I could remote, like roles like that. I could do any number of things. I could drive, which you get dirty looks in Portland. I could park, which costs an enormous amount of money. But no, there was no reason. It turns out, passion doesn't have to have a reason. If you find what you love and you pursue that and you realize that you're smiling while you're doing it or just overjoyed for no reason whatsoever, I'm going to tell you, you're probably in the right place. And it doesn't have to make sense. No way. It doesn't have to make sense. So find what you love to do. Find that thing that you may not be doing it right now. You may not. So stop and ask yourself, why am I not? Why am I not? And get ready to change your life forever. And so to all of you, I say, welcome to the Nerd World Order. Welcome to the Hall of Heroes and for Nerd Life. Thanks.